Shane, hey man, we have got a number of games here to preview some really terrific matchups, including two SEC showdowns and coach comments from all these guys. So, you ready to talk some Kentucky, Florida?
Let's do it, baby.
Well, let's start in Lexington, Shane, because all of a sudden, I don't want to say everybody, because hell, I've been pumping up Florida, but was your pick number 2 in the East. This was the official media pick. Number 2 in the East, the Kentucky Wildcats started a little slow against Miami, but you finished strong. And all of a sudden, Shane, I think the vast majority of the country is going to be picking Florida to win at home over Kentucky. And I got to be honest, Shane, I think Mark Stoops and company, that is exactly where you want to be discounted once again. Florida on the rise. Florida going to win national championship. Lowly Kentucky. Maybe they make the Music City Bowl. That's probably all over the locker room up there. I've already seen one analyst predict Florida to just destroy Kentucky. I believe I was on the Paul Feinbaum show here on Tuesday. But I don't know. What's your thoughts on that, Shane? Kentucky, is this at least mentally right where they got the Florida Gators, right where they want them?
Yeah, I really do. And Florida is the sexy pick right now. Let's not lose the fact that we just bashed the AP poll. What if they're wrong on Utah? I mean, has anybody ever, obviously they're not the number 4 team in the country, or they wouldn't get beat by an unranked Florida Gators. So the AP poll, it's like, how much validity do we put into this poll? And then, again, you won at the very end, last second play. So it was a tough fought ball game. Both sides of the ball, they gave anything. They gave it all. There was no breaks. You know who took breaks last week? Kentucky. And I'm not saying it cost them a game, but, they were a sluggish start. They worked out some of their problems. But once they got going, man, they were unstoppable. And I think, not having the game come down to the very end of the wire and that emotional drain that you just upset a number 4 team, I think that is perfect for Kentucky. Did they make mistakes week 1? Absolutely, but they were working on them. And in Florida Gators, you ask any Gator fan right now, majority of them are overlooking Kentucky. This is a program they're not expecting to lose to.
Now, let me ask you this, though, Shane, because it certainly seemed in the opener that Kentucky, they had a little bit of issue with the offensive line. Their run totals were not great, although you got to, in college, we factor in the sacks. There was 4 sacks, I believe, of Will Levis, a lot of them on third and long. So it was like critical, obvious passing situations, and Levis was under pressure, getting hit. But, it's troubling because Chris Rodriguez looks like no official word. We'll get to what Mark Stoops had to say, but he's out. Ramon Jefferson, they brought in this transfer running back. He's out for several weeks. Jatuan McClain, another guy they were counting at running back, he's week to week. He got banged up in the opener. So all of a sudden, your depth at running back is going to be tested. Yet, what we saw from that Florida-Utah game, Utah really, and this is what we knew about Florida coming into the season. Their defensive line was thin and lacking, a player or two here, but the defensive tackle position in particular, very thin and lacking marquee talent that the Florida Gators are used to. Yet Utah was able to take advantage of that. Kentucky has got to take advantage of that. But they're almost like between a rock and a hard place because, hell, they ain't got any running backs here. And the offensive line was struggling against Miami of Ohio. So I say all that, Shane, to say this, pose this question to you. Do you try to establish that run like Utah did, which they were having a ton of success in the second half? Or do you rely on Will Levis, who is obviously the star of your team, but surrounded outside of Robinson, the transfer, a lot of youth at receiver for Kentucky, and they really got those guys going in the opener. Maybe that was the plan where, hey, we got to get these guys ready for Gainesville. But it's going to be very interesting to me to see how Kentucky tries to attack Florida because there's many different ways to go about it.
Well, I think it seems like you say this about every game, but it's about establishing the run, in my opinion here. Florida looked fantastic last week with the rushing attack. Kentucky didn't. I don't even know who's going to be running the ball during this thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think they had like 50 yards rushing last week. They cannot repeat that. They cannot put this just on Will Levis and his arm, because the recipe's been out there. More often than not, when it comes down to just Will and everybody else, Kentucky, is either in a fight for their life or they lose the game. And I think establishing that offensive line and controlling that line of scrimmage, and I think that's what it boils down to. It's going to come down to that rushing attack, something that Kentucky needs to get better at, and something Florida needs to continue to do. How does that go into the next week? I don't know, Mike. I mean, one thing I will say is nothing against Utah, but I think that Kentucky defensive front is going to be a little bit tougher to run against.
Yep.
The tape is out. I mean, everybody knows exactly what Anthony Richardson is capable of. So I'm sure that's been the emphasis all week is quarterback containment. If you take that away, then what does the Florida offense look like when you put it on the arm of Anthony Richardson? So I think you could argue this back and forth either way, but the main thing is whoever wins this game has got to establish that running game early, man, because if they don't and they make it one-dimensional, that team will lose.
Any update on Chris and Jordan?
I wish I did, guys. I wish I did. I don't know, being a holiday today, and we don't have any. I don't have anything I could report. And again, I've always been transparent with you and tried to be the best I can. Again, I've been advised there's things going on. There's layers to this that I've been advised I really can't comment on it. It's not that I'm trying to hide things from you. But again, the players have their own rights and things of that nature with this situation.
Mark, why is the C-Rod situation taking so long? I mean, everybody seems to be overly patient with that.
You have been. It's again, John. I mean, if I could say it, I would. I mean, it's that simple. I'm not trying to hold anything, back. I don't think, with. I just better just stop. I mean, what's more, I can't be any more clear than that. I've been advised not to. I can't say. It's not anybody that's hurt, injured, things that are out there. I've told you for 10 years. So I think you can understand that it's out of my hands.
Mark, what were some of your big takeaways watching that Florida-Utah game?
Both teams are good football teams, and Florida is more physical. They to me their offensive line really played well, and you could see that improvement and the commitment to being a tough physical unit. They always have great guys on the perimeter and skilled players, and Anthony just a very good football player. That I guess you could just hit that on repeat when we get into the league, because they're going to say that pretty good, but that's the way it is. And then defensively, Florida. They have three of the four on the back end returning very good football players, guys with a lot of experience. Trey Dean, their free safety, has played. I can't believe he's still playing, but no, he's only a fifth-year guy, but he's a good player. I remember recruiting him out of high school, and just a very good player, very experienced, very solid, and got great length. So. They have a good group back there, and their nickel has quite a bit of experience as well. So that group is very good and very talented. I think we all understand we need to run the ball more efficiently. It wasn't awful. When you add in the sack yardages, it takes off the net. But when you just got the running back runs, we only ran it, I want to say 26 times maybe with the running backs, 26 times for 75 yards. It's not up to our standards by any stretch, but we could get that ironed out. The good news is I don't think any of our running backs had any negative yardage plays, so everything still went downhill, which is important in this offense to be able to get those 3, 4, 5-yard gains and keep them off balance. I think you could tell by, with our run game, it opened up those strikes. It opened up those passes that we really hit consistently all day, and so the more effective we are and more committed we are to the run game, we'll continue to open up opportunities.
Yeah, and it's just interesting to me, Shane, that here we got Kentucky and Florida. They're both, we're young in the Billy Napier era, but I know enough to know that the foundation of his offense is smash mouth, running the ball, and
Yep.
we saw that against Utah, obviously. But
Yep.
that's what both these teams want to be. Yet they both got star quarterbacks. That everybody's going to be circling that. Hey, who's going to be the guy that makes the play? And I think again, I think it plays into Kentucky's hands, Shane, that everybody, us included, hyping up Anthony Richardson and just marveling over his talent. Yet here we got Will Levis, who he probably already's got a chip on his shoulder, but he's coming into this game saying, hey, they're talking, I'm an elite quarterback too, and I'm going to go out here and outduel this guy that everybody's enamored with after week one. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see these quarterbacks go head-to-head.
It is going to be a hell of a matchup, no doubt in my mind, Mike. But that doesn't need to be the attitude, in my opinion, of Will Levis. He doesn't need to win this game. He really doesn't. And I think sometimes you can get in your own way, and try to force things, which he forced a few things last week. But, this isn't Will Levis versus Anthony Richardson. We're going to paint it that way because that's what we do. But it's the Florida Gators against Kentucky Wildcats, and it's going to be a team effort. And I think that's the key. The true MVP of this game will be the one that rallies the entire crew, not just themselves.
Now let me ask you this though, Shay, for Florida, coming off maybe the best win of the young season here. Fans are hyped. Anticipation is going to look like another sellout crowd. Everybody on campus is touting them, telling how great they are. How big of a challenge do you think it is for Billy Napier to get this team to turn right around and focus in? I mean, it's an SEC game. Obviously, that helps. You lost to Kentucky last year. It's not often Florida could say a revenge game with the Kentucky Wildcats, but here we are. Do you think focus is at all an issue for this Florida team?
How can it not be, man? There's still highlights coming out from that game. There's still, different angles of that last play, and I mean they're just relishing it all, and they should. This was a huge upset. This was a great win for the Florida Gators. What I really enjoyed about it is the swamp came alive, man. That's. Say what you want, that crowd noise was a factor, and the fan. That's all with fandom, and we want them to be pumped up. We want them to rally behind their troops, but these players have got to go in it week at a time. And I know I hate when they say that. It's like they don't want to talk about a team 3 weeks from now, whatever. It's 1 week. We're 0-1 going into this one. So. But that's really the mentality that Florida has to happen, but my only concern is senior leadership. This is when the coaches can. I mean, Napier's been here before. The coaching staff has been here before. These Florida Gators, a lot of these players have it, and they're going to need somebody from inside that locker room, whether it be Anthony Richardson or some other seniority, come up and step up and say, hey. That was last week. We got to flush this shit. It's a new ball game. It's a new week, and we can't drag ass. You know what I'm saying? And because a lot of times you see some of these teams, they get hung over, whether they get upset or something, and it carries over to the final week. There's been a lot that pull off the upset. Prime example, Pitt. At Tennessee, they just, they had that big game against Tennessee, and then they dropped some cupcake team, and they beat Clemson, and they drop another one. It's a theme up there. It happens to other programs. Florida cannot get too high. They need to just, I know it's easier said than done, but they're going to need somebody in that locker room to just grab everybody by the reins and say, hey, we got to do this. It's a new week. Get that one's over. 24-hour rule, that's long gone. We're on to Kentucky.
Ooh, I love this fire from Cousin Shane.
Oh, I love it, man, because this is such a big game. This is a pivotal matchup in the SEC East, and it has been for the last few years. And You know, Kentucky had their number last year. Florida had it. But it's a fun game to watch. But it's also a true testament to how the East plays out. You know, is Florida legit? I don't know. Is Kentucky a bust? We don't know. You know, because we're basing it off of Utah, which we think was overrated, and we're and a freaking I don't even know that. It doesn't matter who the hell Kentucky played last week, because that's what we can't base it off. But we can base it off this game. We can base the SEC off these two matchups. So I'm pumped up for it, man. How can you not be?
That too. You got young guys who, that was an exhilarating experience.
Yeah, no, I'm hopeful we have a lot of those, right? But, I think you're right. I think that's a big question is like, how is this group of players and this staff going to handle everybody patting them on the back for the next week? And I think that it's one of the things about the University of Florida. You're in a state with 21 million people. You got a huge alumni network. You got unbelievable passion, right? So when it's good, it's good, and when it's bad, right? So learning how to navigate that, ignore some of the subjective opinions, and really call it what it is, call a spade a spade. So I think the sense I got from our team is that they know they can do much better.
This has been an offensive line that's been considered a finesse offensive line for years. Would you talk about the toughness he brings and the toughness you saw from your offensive line?
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the areas where we played the way we want to play. I thought that group showed, that's kind of who we want to be. That's the brand of football that we played in the past. We invest in that area. We have 2 offensive line coaches. We put a premium on line of scrimmage play. That's a developmental position. But certainly Osiris, he rose to the occasion. I think we've always felt that Osiris was one of the better players out there, and he showed it. He was one of our players of the game. And I think that his comfort with the system, right, his comfort with the routine, I think that rubs off on that group a little bit. But Coach Stapleton and Coach Sell are really good at what they do in that group. I think there's a lot of room for improvement there. But we're getting closer to the identity that we want that group to have.
So many facets in building a program. Winning is minor, but yet major, right? What does it win like that, and maybe even a game like this? What can that do to maybe jumpstart, fast track the big picture of what you're trying to do?
Well, I think it helps. When you're new and you're doing things a different way, and you're trying to establish trust, and you're trying to connect with people. I think that it's important that they see progress, right? They taste a little bit. And I think this was our first opportunity to take some of these things that we've been doing. We've been working for 8 months, right? And then you got to go play a game. There's no preseason games. There's no you don't get to go scrimmage another team. So the player experiences, oh man, some of these things that we've learned are working. This may have a chance here. They may, there's always a little bit of doubt until they see, okay, hey, maybe we got a chance here. So, I think early on in your tenure, you're always looking for these type of opportunities. And it ain't over, just so we all understand that, right? So, we found a way to win that game, but, I think each week is going to present a new set of challenges, and each week will be much the same.